What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about the top 5 most heavily shorted EV stocks in the market as of right now. So I want to go over all the things you need to know, but first make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And with that, let's get right to it. So it has been a while since I've done one of these videos, and largely because of just the macro conditions, tariffs and whatever else, a lot of EVs have been hit. But with a lot of good negotiations from what it looks like happening between the States and China, and just the broader market getting kind of ready to really move higher, I think it is time to start really looking at heavily shorted stocks. So that's why I wanted to do this video. And in case you haven't really watched it, I'm only going to be covering stocks that are having a market cap of 100 million or greater. I think anything below that, it's just a lot of dilution and it's not really a good kind of image. Nonetheless, without further ado, side note, I did go through absolutely every one of these stocks to really look at the short interest. There's been some changes, obviously, since last time I did it, but without further ado, let's get right to stock number 5. VinFast, ticker's VFS, sitting at $3.21. Over the last 1 year, it is up 22.37%. Over the last 5 days, up 7.06%. So definitely gaining some pretty good traction. Of course, I think they would really stand to benefit from just a lot of the tariffs kind of being reduced overall. But right now, 4.82% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 2.4 million shares. These numbers right here, I'm not necessarily going to go over, but that's from the changes that did happen from the last business day, such as Friday, of course. But cost to borrow average is 28.67%. That is an annual rate, not a daily rate. And overall, as you can kind of see, shorts have been just lingering kind of around for a while now. Before, looks like early 2024, short interest was roughly 15% for the most part, but as of late, shorts have been just kind of sticking around between that 3.5% to 4% range. Aside from that, though, looking right over here through IBKR, you see roughly around 75,000 shares available to be shorted. Reason why I bring that up is because typically with some stocks that are heavily shorted and the limited supply does kind of diminish, you do see some buying coming from big players just for the purposes of lending it out. So nonetheless, though, that does add some nice buying pressure. So again, with 75,000, you might see some buying this upcoming week, but nonetheless, it's more of a good FYI. A couple other additional things I'm not necessarily going to go over up here. DTC is a hot one that you need to be kind of aware of. Short score, higher the number, higher likelihood of a squeeze happening. So that's sitting at 81.25, and then utilization as well. So definitely a lot of good information up here that I won't really go over with each one. But nonetheless, this is stock number 5. Moving on to stock number 4, you have Polestar. $1.09 on Friday did go down 5.22%. A lot of bad news has been coming out about just financials being delayed. I think operationally, they have been really struggling for various reasons, and plus the tariffs recently haven't helped whatsoever. Over the last 1 year, down 18.66%, and then over the last 5 days, up 1.95. So definitely it is struggling to break out, but potentially with a lot of those tariffs being kind of reduced, this is where Polestar could get a secondary wind and really push higher. But we are here because it's heavily shorted. So 10.94% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 41.85 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average 17.52, and then short score is 87.58. DTC, side note, is 9.78 days. So that is obviously dependent on the daily volume, but still almost 10 days. That's very high stuff. And then ultimately, as you can kind of see right here, shorts have been lingering between that 9 to roughly like 12% range, but I think they have been slowly really piggybacking off of the negative Polestar news lately and starting to increase. So something to keep in mind, but through IBKR does indicate 10,000 shares is available to be shorted. And this is actually a good example of what I mean on institutions buying. So it went from 300 shares to 10,000. So of course, some entity out there did buy during that kind of time frame right there, and even going from 3,000 to 10,000, even extending that, it went from like 950,000 to 1 million and so forth. You guys get the idea. But nonetheless, this is stock number 4. Moving on to stock number 3, we have good old NIO sitting at $3.97 over the last 1 year, down 25.52, and then over the last 5 days, pretty much flat. So this stock definitely will benefit from the China-US negotiations that is underway, and again seems to be doing fairly well from what we can see so far. But 12.65% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 201.12 million shares overall are being shorted. It is to note, on Friday, shorts did return 3.74 million shares, and shorts have actually been returning a significant amount, bouncing off of that 15% range. So shorts do feel, in my opinion, a little bit more upside is coming with NIO. Through IBKR does indicate in excess of 10 million shares. So most likely you won't be seeing any buying this week, just for the purposes of lending out shares, because there is more than enough. But at the same time, you can kind of analyze this, because if shorts really wanted to double down and felt that NIO was doomed and was going to go down, they can easily increase their position. There's a lot of shares available. So the fact that they don't, again, can be interpreted as a really positive thing. Again, my viewpoint on that. But moving on to stock number 2, we have good old RIVN sitting at 14.26 over the last 1 year. It is up 39.53%, and then over the last 5 days up 5.24%. Just recently had their earnings. On a side note, I believe it was on the 6th after hours, but 18.17% of the free float's being shorted. Works out to be 158.05 million shares. And so on Friday, you did see a lot of negative kind of price action did happen. Very interesting to see that shorts did increase. I know I said I wasn't going to bring it up, but definitely with RIVN, it stood out. Shorts increased 18.77 million shares, increasing their position by 13.48%. Very crazy stuff. I don't know what's really up with that. Maybe there is more to it associated to RIVN that I'm not really aware of. So for those of you that are kind of aware of RIVN's day-to-day operations and so forth, what happened on Friday for shorts to increase almost 20 million shares? That is insane. But cost to borrow is very low, so 1.06%, and shorts have been surprisingly returning, went from roughly that 17% range to a low of 15.76, and so there was a clear indication that they were going to do a very good job on their earnings and obviously move higher, but I don't believe that was necessarily the case. So maybe this is shorts just starting to pile back in, but basically through IBKR does indicate 2.5 million shares is available to be shorted. So kind of interesting stuff. And then moving on to stock number 1, good old Lucid, sitting at 251 over the last 1 year, down 7.04%, and then over the last 5 days up 2.03. So definitely gaining some pretty good traction. It did actually have their earnings as well, same day as RIVN. And this is the actual results on a side note right here. So they did beat on their earnings per share, and then they missed on the revenue. But aside from that, 29.3% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 361.34 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 2.01. Shorts did increase as well with Lucid on Friday, 1.78%, not the same magnitude as RIVN, but still something to take note of, because Lucid did go up on Friday alone 8.66%. So definitely something to somewhat analyze. And then shorts recently did double down, went from around 23% short interest to kind of the high 20s, and they seem to be still sticking to it. But then again, if you kind of zoom out, what I always find funny about Lucid and a lot of these other stocks is zooming out, short interest has really doubled down over the last couple of years, when in reality their operations has really improved, both with Lucid, RIVN, and even NEO, many of the other stocks. So shorts have become very bold, and in some cases you could say that they are rather overextended based on what is happening operationally. But then again, obviously I could be wrong about that, but through IBKR does indicate 500,000 shares is available to be shorted. So this is the top 5 most heavily shorted EV stocks in the market as of right now. So I won't be doing this video every single week. Maybe I can do it every 3 weeks or every month, just to kind of switch it up a little bit. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts on these top 5. Is there any other EVs that you feel are squeeze plays? And if so, throw some tickers in the description below. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.